Good evening for our second episode of Green and Shy. Thank you for joining us. And tonight for our guest, we have Jarett Burke, co-founder and CEO of KifCure, along with Mike Edinger, the director of operations at KifCure. They're a 2-year-old company, and I'd like to start out by introducing my sidekick, Alton Edinger. And Alton is, I like that shirt, Alton. You're looking good, man. Chicago weed. I like it.
Thanks, Dan.
So Alton and I are part of Green and Shy, and I'm going to let Alton talk a little bit more about how we got this started, and then we're going to get into an interview with Jarett and Mike, and going to introduce you to some great guys, and you'll learn a lot tonight about extraction and about this company with KifCure, which is a great company. Go ahead, Alton. Tell them about why we're here and why we're doing this.
Thanks, Dan. And by the way, you got to give a shout out to Illinois Cannabis Trainer for the shirt. They were one of the people I visited at the resource fair that Chicago put on a couple of months back. You know, back when we had events and cool things, and you can get swag. And you know that's one thing I'm sure we all miss. But you know that's one of the reasons why we put together Green and Shy. It's not just about events. It's actually a platform for opportunity for people that want to learn about cannabis and hemp and that whole industry, people that want to get jobs or get education and training, people that want to start businesses or people that want to expand their business and really get into the industry and even be one of the support companies, because you don't have to touch weed, CBD, or even be a part of it to make money and be a part of the industry, whether it's transportation, real estate, and that's what this is all about. So it's really exciting to have this company on here, because not only do they have a great company and a service, but they're working with companies just like the small businesses out there, providing the resources, and we'll touch base on that. And, you know, hopefully, you know, this is something that keeps us all tuned and educated in the process, because we are eager to have events again once these bans are lifted and we can actually hang out with more than 10 people. So I'll let Dan start off with the interviews.
Well, Jarett, thank you for joining us. Mike, thank you for joining us this evening. And Jarett, tell us about how you got started in this industry to begin with. Love to hear that.
Sure, absolutely. First, I just want to extend a big thank you to the Green and Shy team for having us on today. Couldn't be more happier to share some insights with you all today and kind of go into some of the ins and outs of our business and the industry as a whole. So again, thank you for having us on here. So yeah, I got started in this industry about 5 years ago. I own a web development company called Razzbit. Started in 2010 out of the West Loop in Chicago. And over the years, as the medical marijuana industry really took hold in some of these states out west, like California and Colorado, really got a chance to dig into some of these companies doing their IT work. So building websites, designing logos, doing the things that in the early stages of these startups, essentially. So really got to see the early stages of some of the industry being built out west. So as time went on, I really got to understand some of the different, genetics because at our core, what we do is we're an extraction company. We consider ourselves a soil to oil hemp solutions provider. So that being said, what we did out west back in the early days of the medical marijuana industry was really understand how the oil was extracted out of the hemp biomass or the hemp flower. So what we did is we worked with a lot of the growers early on to understand what strains really extracted well, and some of the different cannabinoids or flavonoids or terpenes that came out of those plants, and ultimately what the end user experience was like. So that was my start. Now we're here in the Midwest. We've got KifCure, CBD company, and we're couldn't be more happier about where we're at, and we really see some good things on the horizon for the CBD industry as a whole and the cannabis industry as a whole.
What do you see as some of the biggest challenges, with us being hit with this pandemic right now, Jarett, as far as the challenges going forward? What do you see as the biggest challenges for your company this year?
Well, of course, there's unfortunately going to be some of our customers that go out of business as a result of this. If you look at the retail, retail in general, which a lot of our customers are coffee shops and, mom and pop, health food stores and tobacco shops and people that, retail's tough as it is. You layer on top of, shutting doors for foreseeable future, it really does a dent into, cash flow, but the ability to really keep your doors open. So unfortunately, I think we're going to see a lot of the brick and mortar retail operations, unfortunately, go by the wayside. However, what we have seen is just as much as we've seen some of that side of the industry in these early stages of this pandemic, and none of us really know what the implications will be as we move forward in this year. But up to this point, we've really seen a lot of these brick and mortars immediately pivot over to the e-commerce portion of the industry. Therefore, building websites, getting on some of these wholesale B2B apps that are out there, really finding other channels to sell existing inventories that they may currently have, or reach new customers, which, that's the way the industry's headed.
Thank you. Let's talk to you for a moment, Mike. Tell us how you got into this industry.
Sure. So yeah, obviously grew up, and I was a huge connoisseur, advocate of the plant. Obviously indulged and enjoyed it all through high school. But I was always the concentrate guy growing up. So I happened to get in and try concentrates fairly early, back in 2014-ish is when I first did my first dab. That was really nice and enjoyable, and it really opened me up to it opened my eyes to how much this plant could truly offer if somebody could accentuate what is there to benefit you, and then kind of mitigate some of those ancillary components that you don't need. And it really, obviously brought a crazy experience for the first time. And that was what spurred me into understanding the chemistry behind extracting the plant and refining the plant and being able to make those types of cannabinoids more readily available and in a higher potency. So that's kind of what got me into the extracting processing side of the space. And then from there, not to get too personal, but I grew up with a mom who, we had a terrible car accident when I was younger. So she had a little bit of she had a couple of vertebrae in her neck and back were broken. So she obviously suffered from, having an opioid, not necessarily an addiction, but a validatable reason to take opioids for constant pain. And I got a firsthand view on kind of how debilitating some of those things can be. And once I, connected the dots to, the passion that I have in processing and extracting the plant could also make a more homeopathic regimen for my mother that was going to not mess with her liver, not make her, lethargic, and still be able to make her function throughout her day. So that's kind of what pushed me towards the hemp space in particular. Originally, whenever I came into the space, I was a consultant on the THC side. So I started up in Michigan and did a couple lab build-outs out there right out of college. And then from there, that ended up getting me an opportunity to go out to California and work up in the Humboldt area, up in Willits or Ukiah. So the Emerald Triangle was a really fun experience, and I got to work all the way down through into the LA Long Beach area and did some shadowing up in Seattle as well. And then I kind of, taken those best practices, and about 2.5, 3 years ago, Jarett and I met up very circumstantially. My sister actually is a fiance to one of his good friends growing up. And then they're like, oh, wow, you guys are both kind of in the cannabis space. You should meet up. Right as he had a director of operations leave who needed this position filled. So it was just kind of this really fateful act that showed that we needed to, compile our talents and partner up. And I just kind of taken a lot of those best practices I've learned from consulting out in the West Coast and brought them back to the Midwest and into the hemp space.
And just going on that there, Mike, being that you kind of have a unique experience, went from an enthusiast to someone that's now director of extraction, director of operations, and working very hands-on, what kind of advice could you give someone that maybe was in your shoes a few years back that wants to get in the industry? What is it that you're looking for now? Because there's a variety of talents out there that might not have that cannabis in their resume, but have that skill. How do they get seen by someone like yourself?
Of course. So for me, what I've noticed now in the past, 2 or 3 years in particular, the information is becoming much more readily available to be able to understand cannabis processing, cannabis extracting, refining, and distillation, all the way. I mean, any part of the cannabis processing cycle is readily available. I mean, huge shout out first to there's a forum called Future 4200 where if anybody had any cannabis processing questions or any cannabis extraction questions, there's an open forum of these, I mean, just a plethora of verified consultants and verified people who, have delved into this space for the past 5 or 10 years. So you can obviously supplement your learning curve by using forums like that. But the big thing that I look for is, I understand what talking the talk is, but you need to have some sort of hands-on skill prowess to be able to assemble these machineries, not only to be able, because for me, I could definitely teach a technician how to run a piece of equipment far sooner than I can get somebody to truly grasp the chemistry behind what's happening and how to manipulate it to a certain fashion. So I think, the information is there if you're willing to look, but the hands-on use of this equipment and utilizing this starting material is just not there. We haven't had the time to be able to create a true, beautiful word, SOP they love to use in this space of what verifies a processor and what is the minimum requirements to be a verifiable processor. And there is no baseline. So what I look for is people who have hands-on prowess. A clean slate isn't the worst thing, but you got to understand kind of a little bit of the chemistry behind what you're doing. But I could teach you how to run a machine far sooner than I could teach you the chemistry behind, cannabis per se. So
That's great. No, that's great. Thanks.
No, absolutely.
I was wondering if they might like to tell us about those beautiful plants behind them. Jarett?
Of course.
Mike?
Sure thing.
Would like to stab at this one.
Yeah, so here, welcome to, we got our Fireside chat. So this is, we're here in Maple Park at our office in Maple Park, Illinois. We have, these are actually a couple R&D plants that we're doing right now. We're working on several research projects this year with various universities throughout the Midwest to really understand this plant a lot better. For us, what we want to know is the data that comes out of it from, essentially squeezing the oil out of it, and what plants and what strains and what conditions yield the best oil for us, right? So that's what our main interest is. But on the flip side, we're working with the farmers as well, really from our soil to oil approach. So what we do is work with the farmers up front, understand what kind of soil they're dealing with. First of all, it all starts with the soil. Secondly, we'll work with some of our top geneticists out west, namely in California, Colorado, and Oregon, that really have been growing this plant for decades, but really these specific CBD and CBG and some of the other minor cannabinoid strains that have been growing them for several years and really understand how they perform. So what we're doing here is really trying to understand a few strains that we've done here in our lab, and just understanding more or less. We're going to be growing some field trials here at our. We've got about an acre in the back that we're planting as we speak, or getting the soil ready. And what we're trying to do is just, like I said, understand how do these plants grow in the Midwest, and what are the best strains for us as extractors to, at the end of the day, process for our oil that we make.
Right.
Let me ask you, are universities doing research to help you study plants that grow geographically better in one geographic location than another? Is that something, or what else are the universities working with you on, the plants, to come up with better science?
Yeah, so we're actually, as we speak, we're defining that protocol. I had a call actually today with one of the universities and our head of cultivation, and we were talking about that exact thing. There's about half a dozen of the universities that are the Big 10 universities that are kind of working together to define what that protocol is, because come about a year from now, they're going to report findings back to the USDA, essentially on a lot of this data that we're trying to capture. So we're doing our best parts to be, good stewards of these genetics that we're representing from some of our growers, to make sure that they're studied and they're analyzed here in the Midwest, how resilient they are to moisture, to cold weather, to hot weather, to just a number of different environmental factors, whether it's the spacing of the plants, of how the plants grow, and the different spacing. So a number of other these different types of data points that we'll be looking at here in the coming year.
I think the overarching genetic strategy here for KifCure, as Jarett had mentioned, we are processors and extractors to our core. So, our whole genetics platform is nothing more than that, that beautiful analogy of a pebble in a pond. So we're going to go out there and at least give you something compliant, at least give you something resilient, at least give you something that has a track record, so that we can cause a ripple effect and allow you to really get the best out of your investment downstream, either processing with us, making your own brands, white labeling, whatever level of refinement you're looking for. But that's our overall goal here, is to make sure that we're transparent and offering that first initial pebble to kind of make the waves that are the rest of the supply chain.
When you're looking at your end product at harvest time, what are you looking at as far as what's an average for the CBD content within the plants when you harvest and process them, and how difficult it is to keep plants from going hot?
Yeah, well, I'd like to say that a usual baseline in the space right now, whenever we're talking about a plant being taken to biomass, and it's been dried, it's been milled, and it's been prepped for extraction. Once it's taken to biomass, usually, the baseline is 10%. 10% CBD is usually a good quality biomass, because A, it's easy for me to factor what an outcome should be, and B, that's just you retain a good amount of cannabinoids throughout the drying and the milling process, which is not as easy as people make it out to be, especially with some of the conventional drying practices have a lot of turbulence and a lot of heat that can really kind of degrade a lot of the essential cannabinoids you're looking to extract downstream. So it's always good to kind of look into different types of drying and less invasive types of drying, because that's going to end up yielding the most cannabinoids downstream in an end product. And what was the second part of the question? I apologize. There was a second half there you had.
I think you're asking about the content of the CBD.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. So like I said, 10% is usually a bear. That's usually a good baseline of that's a good quality product. But I think once people understand, you asked about going hot. I apologize. So going hot, there's a huge misinterpretation of, a plant going hot is because of environmental factors or stressors or all these other varying idiosyncrasies that can cause a plant to react a certain way. I don't think that's the case. For the most part, most of the studies and the case studies have shown that it's going deep enough into a genetic makeup that you have found stability within that genome. So that's the big thing where we hit hard, is that we are geneticists and we don't have 20 and 30 years of growing this plant, but what we do have is access to people who do and have done the legwork and the hard work and have provided all of the paperwork that you could possibly need to, show that's going to be a compliant plant, because that's the biggest thing. And I'd love to talk more about that, especially how this year pertains to compliance. But it's also going to be a robust plant, rich in terpenes, which, ends up giving resistance to mold and mildew and aphids and things of that sort. So that's what we're looking for genetics, and we want to make sure we provide that at a bare minimum.
Thank you. Alton, do you have a question?
No, not really a question. Actually, a lot of our groups out here, they're really understanding, what the industry has for them, what their angle is. A lot of people have ideas for companies, but they might not feel they can accomplish making their own CBD products because they don't have a chemistry background, they don't have extraction. And I think it's important that maybe you can share with us, Mike and Jarett, some of the services you guys provide. I know you guys have services for these kind of white label type activities, as well as consulting and lab testing. In fact, one of my good friends, John, if you're watching or listening, put your website in the comments there. Diamond Zen CBD actually uses your services, and it's kind of a cool experience from what I understand. He only talks the world about you guys, but he has a great brand, and the brand is as good as the extraction is. So it's good to have a company like yourself that's trustworthy, that has the lab testing, that has the equipment to allow him to design a product, but not actually put the lab coat on, let's say, right?
Right. And to dovetail off of that, even me as a processor, I'm always limited to the feedstock. So that hits home again on why we want to make sure that we aren't going to fake the whole genetics thing, because we've shot ourselves straight in the foot if we don't provide you with top quality genetics that are going to be, compliant and resistant.
Yeah, and I guess picking up on your comment there about Diamond Venom, Alton. Yeah. Hey John, how you doing? So examples like that. So really what we do is we look at, not just, I guess, and it starts with the farmer, right? It starts with the plant. A lot of these farmers this past year have had hard times finding exits for their biomass. Unfortunately, it was, a lot of them figured it was kind of like, corn or soybeans or wheat, and they would grow it, and then there would be buyers at a co-op or buyers at some form or fashion. Well, the reality of what happened was that there was a lot of biomass that was grown, and not a lot of people that had plans for it on the other side of the grow. So what we've done is we've really worked with our farmers over the last year or so to try and find different creative ways downstream to monetize their crop. So, an example of that is with one of our farms in Northern Illinois that they have a farmer's market. They, very successful farmer's market, and, the oil that we made wasn't moving as quickly. So what we did is we designed a brand for them, designed some oil tinctures, working on some other products that we think will go well in their farmers market. And it tells a great story, right? So it's, hey, we grew this hemp here, and it's all processed and manufactured here in Illinois, and it's a great story for the end user customer. In situations like Diamond Venom, what we do is, we want to provide Mike produces beautiful, great oil, right? So, and what we want to do is take that oil and get it into as many downstream products as we can. So if that means, helping out our friends that are starting brands, that are trying to get their feet off the ground, with our background doing the branding and the, logo design, website design, and all of those things that go along with kind of propping up a brand, we've been able to really kind of merge the two worlds together, the technology and design world and creating products with the oil and the, what goes into those products. So that's been our mentality, and we continue to find great opportunities in that realm.
Yeah, and a big warning to people growing this year is to, understand your market first. So reverse engineer this thing and understand, where are your exits imminently right off the bat? Do you have any, and what level of refinement gets you the quickest, entrance to that exit towards revenue? So whether that's, I always use the example, if you happen to know a guy who bottles water near you or makes beverages near you, then doing a water soluble or a nano emulsified product makes sense for you, because you have somebody who can help you get the end product and bottle it there. And what we like to do is supplement our network to make sure, A, you understand where your market is, and B, what is the avenue to get you there, meddling with the right extract product to what your finished product is going to look like.
And just to go along with that's great. I just have one more question, Dan. Just to get an idea, so that's really interesting. I mean, it's almost like you're part of the company, the true, benefiting from working with you. What would someone need? I mean, what is it that someone needs to get to the point to work with you? Is it just an idea, or do they have to have a really good business plan and simply just need the extraction? Do you guys provide kind of some consulting on that, whether it's, what they should use or the packaging or anything like that? Are you but you said seed to oil, right? So, that really goes in that package.
Yeah. No, I mean, we have two different sides of the business. So we have Mike, who runs really our extraction, all of our extraction, the oil that we're producing out of our labs. And then we have Kelly, who runs any of the brands. We have a brands operations director, and she handles any of the essentially, after the oil is made, then any of these new brands that we're bringing on board, which we've got some very cool and exciting new brands that we're bringing on that we'll be announcing here in the coming months. So excited about that. But I mean, the barrier to entry, yeah, we obviously we love to provide information to folks looking to get into the industry. We're very entrepreneurial ourselves. That's how this company was formed, and we're always, and especially when it comes to this industry. So, you know, when I love to see people who have passion. So that's probably the number one way to work with us, is if I sense that there's passion about the industry, passion about your business, your product, your, you know, helping people, all those things. If you have that passion, we want to work with you. You know, we've turned down many people who just wanted to, you know, just write a check and stand behind a check, but really didn't have any passion for the industry. And that's, you know, ultimately that's, we got to see that before we sign any agreements.
Well, I know John has passion written all over his face when he talks about his product, so I can tell he scored real high in that category.
You got
That's
it.
right.
Mike, I have a question for you. You and I were talking a while back about different forms of extraction. And I think a lot of our listeners really don't know a lot about the different formats you can use to do extraction. Would you mind elaborating a bit on the format you use within KifCure and what other companies may do, or what you've done in the past?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So what we do at KifCure predominantly, whenever you're doing mass throughput on the scale of hemp, which is in usually the thousands of pounds a day being processed, in my opinion, I think ethanol is the easiest carrier solvent to use in that regard. You pull the most mass over, you end up, it's a lot easier to get regulations done for it, because we've been doing the extraction for thousands of years. I mean, back to the times of the Egyptians, we're using, you know, ethanol or alcohol to extract from plants. And so it's not new technology by any means. And it's a little bit easier downstream, and there's a finite pathway to finished products on the ethanol side that's been done multiple times over. Now, a lot of people back in the day, initially when I came into the space, were you know, putting CO2 as that was the creme de la creme, and that was the best form of extraction. Well, what they soon came to realize is that, comparatively speaking to a hydrocarbon or ethanol, it's you know, it's kind of archaic, and it doesn't really have the efficiency that you're looking for there. However, there are benefits to CO2. If you have outlets for terpenes or anything like that, then you do have the ability to cold trap terpenes prior to your extraction. Whereas in ethanol, you know, most of the time you're going to degrade those terpenes downstream by doing your winterization or your decarboxylation. So if you're in the market for terpenes, CO2 can definitely be an option for you. But, you know, I've heard countless consultants and technicians refer to CO2 extraction machines as $250,000 paperweights. So that's not my words, but obviously, comparatively speaking, there are better options. And then, you know, to go on with butane and propane, those are normally done in the THC craft market, because you can make a ton of variety of different extracts without having to do a lot of post-processing. One in particular that got a lot of steam as of late is the, you know, THCA crystallization through pressure. So the diamonds and sauce that you see a lot of people are releasing now, that's just, you know, pressurizing out of the vessel and letting your terpenes and your cannabinoids separate. Well, once you get saturated, the THCA likes to just form and find all of its partners and buddies, and then you get these nice, beautiful crystalline rocks that are they're really cool and amusing, and they're my favorite to make. I love making those. But going back on hydrocarbons, I mean, there's a lot of assets there. It's just hard to scale on the size of hemp. But, you know, if you extract cold enough, you're able to defat and strip fat in line, so de-wax in line, and you also can kind of recover some solvent in line. So you can have fast turnaround times. It's just hard to keep big vessels like that cold for a hydrocarbon extraction. So for the most part, we use ethanol just to kind of hit that middle ground of preserving the cannabinoids we want while also getting a quality product and making it easier for us to process downstream.
What do you think of the USDA and looking at the October 20th date to possibly look at everything? It seems to me to be quite late in the process for farmers.
Oh,
what do you
wow.
think of that?
You hit the nail on the head. I mean, you want to talk about problematic. There's a huge thing that needs to be addressed here in the people making the regulations for cannabis and their lack of cannabis knowledge and cannabis prowess, and the fact that they just have the seat to be able to kind of make these regulations and help push it in whatever direction they see fit. it leads to these perfect examples like you just brought up. October 20th happens to be an extremely problematic date because that's the date that the USDA is shifting from Delta 9 compliant states to everybody is on the same playing field of a total THC compliance. Now, first implication there, why October 20th in the middle of when people are harvesting? That seems problematic to begin with. And B, why give the people the option to opt into Delta 9 THC compliance not a year or two ago just to switch it just like that? So it kind of makes it hard for the marketplace to develop and for people to have interstate commerce. I mean, it adds value to products like, THC-free distillate and isolate because you have interstate commerce is accessible. But, frankly, I think the people making a lot of those regulations don't have the first clue on why they're doing what they're doing. And that's a big issue that needs to really get addressed.
That's a big issue for the whole industry, isn't it, right now? Everybody's concerned.
Yep, right.
Mm-hmm. I worry that farmers will lose money on if this is, pushed through. It could really hurt farmers a great deal.
Absolutely. And the conversation I'm having with farmers as of late is they're trying to take this kind of, risk it for the biscuit approach where they're going to go, yeah, I'm going to do a Delta 9 THC compliant strain that is really robust in CBD to go for that extra 5% CBD in lieu of hoping that I get grandfathered into this new USDA rule, which that's not something I would bank on. And that's why we hit total THC compliance as the first prerequisite for any of the genetics that we use from here on out.
Yep.
This is a kind of a different question that goes along with that, with the biomass. I was just curious, out of your background and experience, with some of these farmers that might have a product that's hot or too high on the THC side, or maybe they miss some of the issues of the compliance. Are there options for their biomass? I know there's a lot of talk about people starting with hempcrete and plastics. Are there other options that people and farmers can benefit from kind of using that biomass or sending it somewhere else if they miss that?
Well, the first thing I'd like to address is that the big thing that you only need to pass is your check for commerce for your state. So as long as you pass that test, then you have legal biomass.
I think you're referring to the fiber byproduct. Is that what you're talking to? After
that too as well. Like as long as there's other options too, because you hear a lot about the great stuff that you can do in CBD and extraction, but there's a lot of other things as well. I'd just be curious if you know what people are doing with that. But yeah, but maybe it's the fiber biomass.
Yeah, there's so right now there's a lot of projects going on. There's a research project going on at Western Michigan University. There's a paper pulp plant there. They're looking at some of these byproducts that come off of the hemp plant. And there's some other plastics projects that are happening. So things are getting very interesting on the fiber side of things. And I'm hearing for the first time this year that there's quite a bit of fiber farmers that are going to be growing for fiber in Illinois. So that's cool. So there obviously is markets developing there for these different byproducts after essentially you're shucking the CBD plant, and then you have the fiber there. People are finding creative ways to utilize that.
Yeah, I think textiles, correct me if I'm wrong, guys, it's like the second or third biggest industry on the planet. And that is where hemp is going. That is the future for hemp, is being able to really kind of do away with this unfortunate 50-year offset that we've had to deal with and get, this into the textile industry to be able to offer a more, eco-friendly, obviously it remediates soil very well, a more dependable form of textile that's lightweight and durable. And also it just kind of adds a bunch of different revenues for farmers to be able to make some money again, because corn and soybeans are really, that's not where it's at right now, unfortunately. So any sort of avenue we can offer for a farmer, that's our MO, is to make sure that they're taken care of first, because no plant, no extract, no product.
Mm-hmm.
No product.
And then that's where I was going with that. That's exactly hit it right on the head. So I appreciate that, because it's important that they have options as opposed to putting it all in one basket and not knowing what to do. So that's great.
Mike, tell us a little bit about your product line and the market that you're trying to salute with your products that you make right now.
Of course, of course. Well, I'm probably going to direct that question back to Jarett because
I actually meant to ask Jared that question. I was just focused on your last answer.
I think in my garden, which is the lab, I produce all the oil and I let them make the products that they'd like to make.
And Mike, that was a question I did want to, or Jared, I wanted to ask you, not Mike. So
Sure, absolutely. So so I guess let me start upstream with the oil. So the oil that we're currently producing today would be full spectrum distillate oil, tea-free distillate oil, so without any THC in it, CBD isolate, so the powder form, and a lot of our brands that we make or that we sell to utilize the isolate version for various different reasons. And then downstream from that, we have a couple different brands of our own that we've created. So probably the most popular one is our Crafted Bites and Delights line, which is a line of, that's kind of our coffee shop brand, in a number of coffee shops. And it consists of, baked goods, some candies and honey sticks and things like that, which are, I don't know if you can see it or not, but up on our mantle here, we've got some of the products. Maybe I'll just do that there.
There you go. We can see them a little bit better.
Yeah. So just some of our products up there. We also have a CBD products by KifCure brand, and that's your traditional, your tinctures and like a relief gel, stuff like that. And then we've also gone on to help create some other products for some other brands. A few up here. There's I'd say there's probably about 6 or 8 different brands right now that we are white labeling either with our products ourselves or helping build those brands. Some of these products, they're your traditional types of full spectrum and tea-free types of products. So gel caps and those types of things.
Do you sell through dispensaries at all, Jarett? Are you in the dispensaries, or what is your main market? Retail outlets?
So we aren't in any dispensaries yet, and I say yet is just because the recent changes to the law, and I'd like to touch on that a little bit if I could.
Please do.
It's about a week or 2 ago now, the Illinois Department of Ag announced that companies like us, CBD companies, hemp companies, can start to do business for a limited period of time, just kind of to get through this big supply glut that we have here in the dispensary market in Illinois, to allow us to work with these companies, because up till very recently that was not prohibited by law. So what we've done is we're starting to obviously reach out to our friends in the legal cannabis market here in Illinois. And we hope to be in some dispensaries here soon, but it's been a little slow. Obviously, can't go meet with these people right now. But our traditional channels are distributors, probably for all of our branded products. Distributors, we have a handful of really strong Midwest-based CBD distributors. Our online market is good. We have a company, we have a website of ours that we own called Top Canna Products. So on Top Canna Products, what we do is we sell, that's our B2C marketplace. So that's the only place that we ourselves are selling our products to the consumer, or at our retail outlet here in Maple Park, but that isn't open yet, obviously.
Okay.
Because of.
Can we highlight a few other different brands as well on that Top Canna Products site, we're open to allowing people to market on that website as well, just kind of if they make it through the vetting process that we like to instill. So
yeah.
I remember you and I were talking not too long ago, Dan, about the, Nessa's oil. That's another product that we like to offer on the site. That's more of a cold pressed extract, which is really cool. Has a ton of implications doing a cold press and really getting that full spectrum, including phytocannabinoids. I think it's huge. And, you and I just randomly were bringing it up in conversation about how fantastic of a product is and how much it differentiates itself from the norm.
Yeah. Well, Anessa's a great lady, and she's a perfectionist, and she really works hard to produce good products. So I can see why you would want to collaborate with her.
Yeah. Of course.
And her with you.
Mm-hmm. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah. So if you
I think we might have them on the show in the near future as well for a little bit too.
Yeah, we have Vanessa scheduled for May 6th.
Excellent.
So that'll be a great to dive into that.
Story too. They're great guys.
They're great. Yep. Great people.
Great people over there.
So, Jarett, we're getting close to where we're going to turn this over to our audience to ask some questions. Is there anything you would like to say, you or Mike, before we turn this over to have some questions?
No, I don't think, Mike, I know Mike's checking out the chat right now.
Yeah, give me 1 second here just to make sure we're not listening.
I don't know if we're going to address any of these questions on the.
Well, while we're doing that, I think it's important, that people out there understand that obviously, times like this, it lets you get creative and allows you to work differently in different parameters, and not only testing yourself, but getting creative on how to make your business run, because we're not able to meet with each other. We're not allowed to go to events. We're not allowed to do this thing, but this is only for a short period of time. And in that time, it's important that you look at these channels. I mean, I think Mike, you gave probably the best example of networking ever. You did all those things. You had a goal in mind. You did all the training, and then you had a close family member that knew another close family member and helped you network. And now look at you sitting next to the fire between the two ferns, right? So it's kind of, but it's kind of interesting. So I don't know if there's different things that you guys are doing right now to kind of keep things going, but there's a lot of things. Maybe you guys could share a little bit about what you've been doing differently. I mean, obviously everything's virtual. I know in phone calls, but have you guys tried any different avenues, different types of outreach, social media, marketing, or anything that might be helpful?
Yeah. So these things, Zoom meetings, we had a series of events planned in March and April and May that were farmer focused. We call them our farmer informational series. We did host 2 of them. So we did get 2 of them in the beginning of March, but then shut them down and have been all web-based so moving forward. So that's one thing that we've changed. The other thing that we've changed has really been the hyper focus on the web, anything to do with the web. So whether that's our B2B marketplaces, really put back in the attention and effort into some of those marketplaces, some of our online distributors, so some of these B2C websites that we sell to. So really getting back either re-engaged with them or uncovering some new channels there. Also some of these subscription boxes, there's some subscription boxes that are coming out that we're standing behind and getting involved with. And we really feel that, similar to something like a trunk club where you get something maybe on you get these things sent in the mail on a monthly or some sort of regular basis. So yeah, there's definitely a changing landscape right now in the CBD markets. And, I will say that the demand for oil has spiked as a result. I mean, what you're seeing is not just that there's not a lot of labs that are open right now that are actually processing, even though cannabis and CBD companies are considered essential businesses right now. A lot of these larger labs have shut doors in the interest of just, they have a lot of people at these manufacturing facilities, and so they put people on layoffs and things or furloughs or whatever they are. So we see that as, we're still a little nimble and we can kind of operate in a fashion not as cumbersome as some of the larger players. So we really see that kind of as an advantage for our business.
And another thing too,
I'm going to go ahead and jump into the questions here. I'm going to combine 2 of them because they kind of go in together. We have a question from Christine and who is this? Mackenzie as well. So I'm going to combine them together. Would you consider your products more USDA grade, medical grade? Are they lab tested? Are the results shared? And are you looking to really work with other cannabinoid extracts like CBG, CBC, etc.?
Yeah, why don't you take that, Mike?
Yeah, of course. So I would say absolutely we do and make sure we follow all of the best manufacturing practice we can up to the extent of where our lab's capabilities are at that current juncture. Like, we're going for CGMP certification in one of our labs at the moment. As far as our products are concerned, I make sure and I do my due diligence to make sure that any component in the product that could be adding an adverse effect is usually mitigated and stripped out. And as far as us adding transparency behind our products, we usually add a QR code to all of our products that's linked to the most updated COA relative to that product. And then to dovetail off into the minor cannabinoids, of course we're looking to do that. That's where the future of the space is, truthfully, because that's CBD is awesome and encompasses a lot of these beautiful benefits, but it's those minor cannabinoids that give the differentiation of what you're trying to affect and accomplishing that certain effect.
Yep. And I would even add to that we're just finding out a lot about the terpene effect. So as the CBN, CBC, CBGs of the world are further researched, they're also finding, in combination with certain terpenes, that the medical benefits or the effects on the human body really take it to a whole nother level. So
yeah, I think on the formulation side, there's tons and tons of benefits of refining down to the nth degree, all these little minor cannabinoids down to a crystalline or down to something that's easy to formulate. But there is a give and a take, because sometimes you're over refining and you're getting rid of a lot of the integrity that plant had. And that it goes on to where Nessa's oil kind of differentiates and sticks itself out, is that it has phytocannabinoids. It's a cold press. It's as much full spectrum and a display of that plant as it really could be, as far as something you're going to ingest. So there's a give and a take to being able to refine and formulate a product that gives a certain effect. But then, you might be shooting yourself in the foot over refining if you're truly going for a medical benefit of a certain strain per se.
I have another question here from Nicholas Rebols, and it's Nick says, I'm working with a local aquaponics greenhouse for CBD. Do you have genetics available for sale to the hemp market, feminized seeds or clones?
Yes, we do. We are currently taking orders, both clone and seed. And generally the way that works, we have a full catalog, so we can get that out. Maybe if after this we can get your information and we can talk. But yeah, we have a full genetics catalog. I mentioned those 12 strains earlier. We have basically the way that it works is we're taking 30% down payment for essentially at the time of order. In some cases, the seed is available and ready to be shipped, but in other cases, the seed is still coming in and will be available by May 1st. And then same goes for the clones. We're taking pre-orders for clones that will be deliverable starting on May 15th.
Got another question for you. This is more on kind of who you're collaborating with. You mentioned that you were working with universities. Which universities are you working with, and what is the nature of your work you're doing with them? Is it more research, education?
Yeah, I'm gonna leave that for the press release, and we're kind of keeping some things under wraps for the time being. But there will be some announcements here in the coming weeks on some of these.
We're staying close to home. Let's just keep it that way.
Yeah.
Man, the anticipation is killing me.
No, but some of the things that we are bringing to these universities is really the availability of these farmers to grow and give the data, number one. Number two is the data that we provide to them from these specific geneticists out west who've really never had these genetics grown in the Midwest, but have grown in harsh conditions, moist conditions out west. So we're able to provide a lot of that data.
Because it's going to take a medleying of insight from people who have that 20 and 30 year track record with the plant, and then bringing that insight into the Midwest and trying to accommodate genetics from that. So we want to bridge that gap first and foremost above all. Let's just make sure that these universities are getting in with people who have genetics that have been vetted and have gone through their due diligence to make sure they're verified. And that's terpene content for resistance. That's making sure they're pushing them. That's testing hermaphroditic tendencies. We have a litany of paperwork that comes with every one of our genetic profiles, and we want to make sure we're transparent above all.
I have another question here from Chris Martin. This is to all of us, so who would like to take this one? Because of the white labeling prevalence and just overall the bulk of CBD brands online, complemented by your website, do you see a craft grow market evolving similar to high THC cannabis brands? And is that maybe similar to your reasoning to have a brick and mortar location when retail trends are saying that it is such a difficult endeavor?
So you want to take that?
Yeah, I apologize, guys. I was actually writing a note in the middle of that. If you wanted to, I hate to make you repeat.
Want to repeat it for you, Mike?
Give me one more run. I apologize.
Okay, glad to. Because of the white labeling prevalence and just overall the bulk CBD brands online, complemented by your website, do you see a craft grow market evolving similar to high THC cannabis brands? And is that maybe similar to your reasoning to have brick and mortar location when retail trends are saying that it is such a difficult endeavor?
Of course. So the big thing that we're looking for in this space, because it has a very low barrier to entry and there's not a whole lot of regulatory bodies holding people accountable, is we're really trying to make sure that the people we work with are craft growers first. They enjoy the plant and they want to make a product that differentiates itself. So yes, craft is totally going to be where the space goes. I mean, bar none, because everybody's going to have hemp. It's just going to be who's going to grow it well. And I think that moves itself into controlled environments is probably going to be more of the future, because especially in a state like Illinois where we're at, we're very flat and very windy, especially come later in the season. So the risk for pollination is huge. So if you're looking for the craft side, I think indoor greenhouse, controlled environments is going to be the future. But when it comes to a big thing I'm trying to push on the operations side for the past year is this is a saturated market. Everybody knows it and everybody's aware of it. So you need to be able to make money off of the pickaxes and the shovels along the way as well. So we want to offer farmers abilities to, start drying for other people, start being able to process and store for other people, because there's other means of revenue besides relying on the flippant market and relying on the retail side to carry all the weight. You can make money along the way before you've even sold any of your product. And I think that's a big thing that people need to become aware of as farmers and not feel so, constricted to that. I need to make some killer, crazy, differentiating product that's going to make all my money on retail, when really you can kind of make money along the way offering these ancillary services and really get a lot accomplished that way as well.
I agree with you, Mike. I think that's a huge market going forward. And I think there'll be more money put into that than maybe some of the large grow operations, because there's a requirement there.
I mean, perfect dovetail off of that. We're already working with, I don't want to divulge too much because there is a patent pending on this technology, but we've been working for the past year with the company who's offering a drying service that's much less harmful, much less invasive on the crop. And we're just finalizing our beta testing. We're going to roll that out here probably in the next year or so as another service that we kind of offer at an arm's length to be able to give people access to revenue.
Great.
Man, you got all these top secret projects with universities. I mean, you got to develop something here. we got another question as well, kind of going along with different methods. Dan in our crowd asked, any plans to get into other methods of extraction, like live extraction, solventless, or does that bring up issues with keeping compliant percentages?
Well, the issue with keeping compliant percentages is the fact that the regulatory body is trying to make the threshold the exact same for flower as it would be for an extract. When I'm ridding all of these different components when I'm extracting something, it's nearly impossible for me to keep that THC level at that same level when it comes in as a flower. So that's the big issue, is that people don't understand that most extracts are going to be hot unless you have almost zero THC whatsoever, because I'm taking out all these other components that aren't made of cannabinoids. So that's where extracts go hot, but to kind of go back to what we were mentioning on the craft grow side, there is a market for that, but it's understanding like how much do you want to delve into relying on the craft connoisseur concentrate market when, a lot of the wholesale stuff might carry some of the weight. So we're doing tons of research and R&D on live resin hydrocarbon extractions and going more of the craft extract route. But, until there's a market developed for it, there's no reason to go dumping millions of dollars into a hydrocarbon lab for craft CBD extracts.
Yeah, the concentrates market in CBD just hasn't quite caught hold yet in terms of where the THC market is. I mean, obviously that's where everything's going. The THC market it has been for years. So.
I think it's a matter of time. It's just kind of a, how knowledgeable is your clientele and who wants to bear the weight of making that clientele knowledgeable. And I don't know if it's worth the bearing just yet, but we definitely are researching, because that's where I come from, is the craft extract realm. So my favorite form of an extract is taking a fresh frozen plant and extracting with hydrocarbons to make a live resin of it. I feel like that's the best interpretation of a plant you could truthfully do. So it's the same plant. We might as well try it with CBD, but if there's no outlet, then there's no reason dumping a ton of energy into it.
Well, I think when we do that, we're going to find there's a larger number of preserved cannabinoids and terpenes and flavonoids when we can start doing that.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. And Mike, I got a kind of a question we haven't really touched base on at all. I know we guys touched base on the importance of extraction, different methods. What about for topical use? Are you guys using different types of solutions, technologies for delivery? Everyone has, different methods. They say full spectrum. Some says nano delivered. Some says cream. There's all these different forms, different milligrams, and that's really a whole different world when you're talking about topical as opposed to ingesting it or smoking it.
Yeah, absolutely. Would you want
Yeah,
to take that a little bit?
Take that.
Okay,
Yeah. Yeah, no, we absolutely are working on some of these new emulsification type of products that to add into any of our existing things. So, for example, there's you want to talk about nano a little bit?
Yeah, sure. So I guess a big thing to start off.
When you touch base on that, Mike, just real quick, just to give an example, like I myself, I wrestled college, go Hoosiers, and now I'm getting old, believe it or not. I know I look all pretty, but I'm getting old. And now my knees are hurting and my shoulders are hurting. And there's some products, I think, another good product. I know Brooke, I just gave a shout out last time. I remember at our last panel discussion, my back was hurting and she just gave me a scoop of her nano-delivered product and it was great. And then some products don't work. So there has to be a difference between what people are using, because it seems like if they have the same extraction and the same quantities, why isn't it working the same?
Yep. So I like to think of it as a level of refinement. That's the difference between a product working period and working fantastically. So when we're talking about, these different types of products, like a nano emulsified product or a micro encapsulated product or anything along that rendition, or something that's aided by an excipient, anything like that, basically all they're trying to do is break down the particle size of the cannabinoids you're looking to access down, and usually it's into the sub 80 nanometer threshold, because that lets it pass through most membrane barriers that your body has. So I thought I heard you say that the product that you were doting is a nano product, correct? A nano topical?
Yeah, that's the one I tried. I mean, there's a variety of them I've tried, but some of them tend to work better than others by a lot.
Yeah, so they've basically, in a nano product, what they've done is broken it down to that sub 80 nanometer particle size and then gave it some sort of excipient or emulsifier to aid it through that barrier that you're looking for. So that's why it works fantastically for topicals. It's because it's a lot faster of an onset time, it's water soluble, and it ends up getting to that localized relief a lot quicker, because it doesn't have to take the time to try to break itself down into that membrane barrier. It's already been done. So that's kind of the difference between why a nano and a micro product might have a quicker onset time or might be able to affect you a little bit better, is because your body has a lot more access to it. So that's where the benefit of it is, along with the fact that it's water soluble and you can make beverages with it. That's kind of the whole impetus of something being broken down that much.
And is that a benefit, to make sure it's water soluble as opposed to oil when it comes to topical?
I think anything under that particle size that gives your membrane barriers on your skin access to it is plenty. And usually like that sub 80 is kind of what the base standard is.
Sorry about that, Dan. Go ahead.
No, I have one question, then we're going to close it out for tonight, and I'm going to let you talk a little bit more about how to get in touch. But we have a question here from Daniel Osagueda, and Daniel, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Any plans to get into other methods of extractions, like live extraction, solventless, or does that bring up
I think
issues?
we touched on that a little bit, didn't we, Alton?
Yeah, we touched base on that question right before that, but yeah, I mean, maybe just give a cliff note of it, but yeah, we touched base on that for him, I believe, right before this.
I missed that one, Alton. I was not
We
sure.
are doing
I know worries.
We are doing research on the craft extract market. It's just something that hasn't been developed quite thoroughly enough for us to go dumping a ton of time and effort into it. But our passions are always in the craft extract product. That's kind of where we came from and got into this hemp space, is, you know, making good quality extracts, the shatters, the live resins, the carts, anything like that. So if we can parlay some of those best practices into the hemp space, then absolutely. But we might as well do it when the market's developed and not bear that weight of making a knowledgeable clientele and why this is cool and why this is a better form of ingesting.
Okay, and Jarett, in finishing out tonight, thank you both for being on. Mike, Jarett, appreciate your time. Tell our audience how to get in touch with your company and where they can find you.
Sure, absolutely. Well, you can find us on the web at KifCure.com. That's spelled K-I-F as in Frank, CURE.com. You can find us, you can call us at any time. We're really easy to find us, 855-KifCure. So that's our number. And yeah, I mean, we also, if you're looking to buy any of our products, you can go to our business to consumer website, which is topcannaproducts.com. So that's TOPCANNA products.com. So we certainly appreciate that.
Well, thank you both for joining us tonight. It was very informative. We appreciate your time, and we think you've done a great job in educating our audience on your products in this industry, giving a little more knowledge.
And we want to thank everybody for coming out. Every week we're going to have new information, new content, new people, new educational pieces so you can learn and we can do business together. And if you're a small business in Chicagoland or even nationwide, send us some merch. We'll promote your company. Let's hand some stuff out to your crowd. Let's get the word out about what you guys are doing. We love promoting small businesses, local businesses here in Chicago. I'll put my contact in the comments here. Feel free to contact me directly. And, you know, if you have other topics, different things that you want us to cover, you want to learn about, let us know. We'll be glad to try to put that into our itinerary as well. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Good night, everyone, and thank you.
Awesome.
See you next week.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Take care.
Coming
Ciao
out.
for now.
Bye-bye.
Mm-hmm.